Before the 19th century, coconut wasn't used too much here in the United States. Well, until 1895. A man named Franklin Baker, well, he owned a flour mill and he received a shipment of coconuts as debt repayment from a Cuban businessman. Mr. Baker learned how to process that coconut into shreds, and the shredded coconut started appearing everywhere, especially in baking recipes like coconut cream pie. I've had my share of bad ones, but Christie's here. She's going to show us all a great one.
Exactly. Now, the problem with a lot of coconut cream pies is that they just don't taste like coconut.
Imagine that.
Right. We decided that we were going to try to put coconut into every aspect of this pie. So we'll start with the crust. I have
my favorites.
2 cups of vanilla wafer cookies. So this is 4.5 ounces, which is actually 34 cookies. I counted them myself.
I'm going to check your work here.
Now, the other great thing about using a pressed crust is that we were able to get some coconut into the crust really easily.
Okay.
So I have 1/2 cup of sweetened shredded coconut, and we're going to put that right in here.
So far, so good.
I also have 2 tablespoons of sugar. Now, adding the coconut to the crust made it a little more moist.
Okay.
So I'm adding a tablespoon of flour just to make sure that it dries up enough. And then I have a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Okay, so we'll just process this until it's finely ground, about 30 seconds.
Okay.
That looks pretty well ground. Now it's time for the butter. So I have 4 tablespoons of unsalted butter that I've melted. We'll just pulse this until everything comes together, about 6 pulses.
Okay.
Okay, let's go put this together. So now we'll just press this into a 9-inch pie plate, and I'm using my handy dandy dry measuring cup to get a really nice even bottom and sides, and go right up the sides of the pie plate so you have a nice edge. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. You see any spots I missed? Nice and even. So I've already heated my oven, middle rack, 325 degrees. I'm gonna pop this in there until it's set and even more fragrant than it is right now, about 18 to 22 minutes. But then I'll make sure that I have a wire rack handy because I wanna let this cool completely before we start making the custard.
Okay.
So Bridget, the crust is cooling. Now it's time to tackle the custard.
Okay.
We're starting out with 3 cups of whole milk all day.
Okay.
But I'm going to start by using a 1/4 cup of it. And I'm adding this to my bowl, and I'll end up dissolving my dry ingredients in here. I'm also adding 5 large egg yolks and 5 tablespoons of cornstarch. Now, a lot of custards will use flour, but we found that the cornstarch just gave a cleaner slice. It was not quite so heavy and stodgy as flour can be. But we need the cornstarch in there so that it doesn't sog out the crust.
All right.
I'm also adding a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And we'll just whisk this together. That looks pretty lump-free to me. So I'm going to take the rest of my milk and add it to this large saucepan with 1/2 cup of sugar.
Okay.
I want to bring this up to a simmer over medium heat. We don't want to bring this to a full rolling boil, but we want to dissolve the sugar and we want to get the milk nice and warm so the custard will come together quickly.
All right.
So the milk is at a nice simmer. Remember, we didn't want it to be boiling. And now we're going to add 1/2 of the milk to this egg mixture. And that's just to raise the temperature of the eggs so they don't freak out when they hit the hot pan and curdle.
We don't want scrambled eggs.
No. So now this is all mixed together. So I'll add this back to my nice hot milk. This will move really quickly.
Right.
I'm going to constantly whisk it when it goes in there so that nothing sits too long against the heat. And what I'm looking for is 180 degrees on my thermometer. 30 seconds to 90 seconds, so very fast.
That's it.
I think we're probably there, Bridget, because this is already nice and thick. 180, that's the magic number.
Looking good.
All right, so I'm gonna immediately take this off the heat, and that means not just turning the heat off, but taking it off that hot burner so it doesn't continue to cook. See how nice and
Rich and smooth.
and smooth that is?
Buttery.
Notice that we haven't talked about coconut yet.
You said coconut in every pot. Coconut at every step.
I promised it. I promised it. So we went back to what worked in the crust. This is another 1/2 cup of sweetened shredded coconut and a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla. We'll just mix this in.
All right, so Christie's using shredded sweetened coconut. And it's a little bit flexible. It still contains some moisture. It's really good to eat right out of your hand. But sometimes you might find something called dried or desiccated coconut. This stuff is completely dried. There's almost no moisture left in it. It can be finely ground like this or sold in very fine threads. Now, it's really difficult to exchange one for the other because, again, this contains almost no moisture where the shredded coconut is still plump and juicy. And we love using the shredded coconut because it's available and it's got a bit more flavor. And I can do this.
It gives really great flavor to this custard. And we're adding it at the end so it doesn't really cook in the custard. So the flavor, just like we had vanilla at the end. So the flavor is nice and bright and fresh.
Preserving that coconut flavor.
And look at this texture. See how nice and thick and smooth this is? That's because we got it all the way to 180 degrees so that the eggs could thicken appropriately.
Okay.
We're all done on the stovetop. Let's move over and we'll put this in the pie crust.
Great.
So I'll just pour the whole thing in. It's just like the most richly divine pudding you'd ever want to have. So we'll just smooth it out. Now, we have to let this cool because it's kind of squidgy right now. That's the technical culinary term that we use. And we don't want it to stay squidgy. We want it to set up so we have those nice slices. And we don't want it skin forming. So I have a parchment paper round. This is an 8-inch round. We actually use this for lining cake pans. And I sprayed the bottom of it with vegetable oil spray. And I'll put that side face down, flush against the top of the custard.
Very nice.
Now we'll just refrigerate this 3 hours to 24 hours. The pie is ready.
3 hours later.
Yes. But we can't have a really amazing coconut cream pie without a big old pile of whipped cream on top.
That's the law.
As I understand it.
Right,
yes.
exactly.
So I have 1.5 cups of heavy cream, chilled, of course, so it will whip up more easily. I'm also adding 3 tablespoons of sugar, because this is sweetened whipped cream.
Yes.
And
it's dessert after all.
a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Now we'll do medium-low speed for about a minute. Okay, that looks nice and foamy.
All right.
So now we'll go to high for 1 to 3 minutes. So we'll keep an eye on it. We're looking for nice stiff peaks.
And it's a good idea to start the whipped cream on a lower speed because it really starts to incorporate air into it more readily, and also so you don't get splatters all over the kitchen.
Okay, that's a little under. Just give it a couple whips.
Yeah, great idea to finish it by hand like this. That way you can control exactly how fluffy your whipped cream is.
And we are fluffed.
And what are you looking for? Stiff peaks there?
Stiff peaks.
Perfect.
Okay, now we have to remember to take the parchment paper off of the custard.
Have you ever done that? Left it on?
I have not, but I imagine it would be a very different textural experience. We're going to cover the whole pie with this, but you want to get a nice big mound in the center and then kind of spread it out from there. I'm just going to finish this off with kind of swirly effect so it looks pretty.
I want to go to there. That looks beautiful.
I promised you we would have coconut in every layer. So I have a 1/4 cup of sweetened shredded coconut, but we toasted it this time. So I
Okay.
just did it in an 8-inch skillet, 3 to 5 minutes on medium heat, just until it gets nice and golden brown. Obviously, it sort of caramelizes the flavor a little bit, and it makes it crunchy.
Yes.
So now we have a different flavor and a slightly different texture. Okay.
Yeah, I found that if I stare at the pie while you're doing it, it does not go any faster.
Come with me. I don't know if you've been incredibly patient, but I will reward you. The first slice is always hard, and then you're looking at me and watching, and I can feel.
How's that? Is that any better?
No, because you're thinking about it.
Oh, but it looks like that.
Not too bad.
No, not too bad at all.
The first slice is the slice that you eat by yourself back in the kitchen, and then you give everybody else theirs.
Just amazing. It tastes of coconut. Coconut in every layer, coconut in every bite. The texture is silky and heavenly.
I just really like that there are multiple textures. With the crust and the toasted coconut on top, it's just like a perfect sandwich for the custard.
It's true. And the bottom crust, I love that you used a crumb crust because A, you got some coconut in there, but also it's just a really nice texture. You're the coconut queen.
Oh, Bridget.
That's a big deal.
Coming from you, I really appreciate that.
Well, for a pie with unstoppable coconut flavor, process sweetened shredded coconut with vanilla wafers, pulse in melted butter, then press into a pie plate and bake. Make a custard by whisking milk and egg yolks and cornstarch. Whisk in a mixture of hot milk and sugar, then cook on the stovetop until thickened. Off heat, add in more coconut and vanilla, then pour into the crust and refrigerate. Whipped cream, then spread all over the pie and top with toasted coconut. Slice and serve. So from Cook's Country, coconut cream pie. Coconut. Thanks for watching Cook's Country from America's Test Kitchen. So what'd you think?
Leave a comment and let us know which recipes you're excited to make, or just say hi.
Now you can find links to today's recipes and reviews in the video description.
And don't forget to subscribe to our channel.
See you later.
Alligator.